Portugal just extended citizenship from 5 years to 10. If you are planning to move there for EU citizenship, the timeline you had in mind just doubled. But here's what most people don't know. Spain now has faster paths to EU citizenship than Portugal does, and in some cases, significantly faster. I've lived in Portugal since 2019. I track every immigration policy change that affects people planning to move here, and this one changes the entire calculation. Portugal's citizenship law was signed on May 3rd, entered force on May 19th. The 5-year path that made Portugal competitive just disappeared. So if you're choosing between Portugal and Spain for EU citizenship, here's what you actually need to know right now. Portugal's old law was simple. 5 years of legal residency, pass a Portuguese language test, prove ties to the country, apply for citizenship. That was it. People chose Portugal over Spain specifically because Spain required 10 years. Portugal was the faster path to EU citizenship. That advantage is gone. Portugal now requires 10 years of legal residency for most third country nationals before you can apply for citizenship. If you're from an EU country or a Portuguese-speaking country like Brazil, Angola, or Cape Verde, it's 7 years. There are still paths for marriage and ancestry, but the requirements are tighter than they used to be. For everyone else from countries like the US, UK, Canada, Australia, it's 10 years. The government pushed this change hard. There was debate about grandfathering people already in the process. If you already submitted your citizenship application before May 19th, you're protected under the old 5-year rule. But if you've just been living in Portugal and haven't applied yet, the new timeline applies to you. So if you move to Portugal in 2024, expecting to apply in 2029 under the old rule, you're now looking at 2034 if you're from a third country, or 2031 if you're from an EU or Portuguese-speaking country. If you're reconsidering your entire plan right now, I put together a free relocation checklist that walks you through what to do first. Find the links in the description. So Portugal just matched Spain's timeline, but Spain kept something Portugal didn't. Exceptions. Spain's general rule is 10 years, same as Portugal, but Spain has multiple faster paths depending on where you're from and your circumstances. And these exceptions matter because they cut the timeline down to 2 years or even 1 year instead of 10. Here's how Spain's citizenship system actually works. If you're from Latin America, any country in Latin America, you qualify for citizenship after 2 years of legal residency in Spain, not 10, 2. The same applies if you're from the Philippines, Andorra, Portugal, or France. 2 years of legal residency, then you can apply for Spanish citizenship. That's an 8-year difference compared to the general rule. Then there's the 1-year path. If you marry a Spanish citizen, you can apply for citizenship after 1 year of legal residency. If you were born in Spain, even if your parents weren't Spanish, 1 year. If your parents or grandparents were originally from Spain, 1 year. These aren't theoretical. These are the actual timelines written into Spanish nationality law. The requirements for all paths are the same. Clean criminal record. You have to pass a Spanish language test unless you're from a Spanish-speaking country. You also have to pass a cultural integration test called the CCSE. It covers Spanish history, culture, government structure. And you have to maintain legal residency throughout the entire process. If your residency lapses, you lose eligibility. Processing time after you apply is 6 months to 2 years, depending on where you submit the application. Consulates outside Spain tend to process faster because they have fewer applications. Inside Spain, it can take longer because of resource constraints. But the timeline that matters is the residency requirement before you can even apply. 2 years if you qualify for the exception. 1 year if you're married or have Spanish ancestry. 10 years if you don't. So Spain's general timeline matches Portugal now. But if you qualify for one of the exceptions, you're looking at 2 years or even 1 year, not 10. Portugal's path depends on where you're from. If you're from a third country, like the US, UK, Canada, or Australia, it's 10 years of legal residency. If you're from an EU country or a Portuguese-speaking country, it's 7 years. Pass a Portuguese language test at A2 level. Prove ties to Portugal, usually through tax records, employment, or property ownership. Maintain legal residency the entire time. Apply for citizenship. Marriage and ancestry paths still exist, but they're not automatic shortcuts anymore. And here's something most people don't know. The new law completely reversed a previous loophole. The citizenship countdown no longer starts when you apply for residency. It strictly starts when your physical residence card is issued. Because AIMA can take months or years to issue that card, that delay is effectively dead time that adds to your wait. AIMA, the immigration agency, can take months or even years to issue that card. So in practice, you're looking at the official timeline, plus another 1 to 2 years just from processing delays. That's not written in the law, but it's the reality people face. If you already submitted your citizenship application before May 19th, you're safe under the old 5-year rule. That's confirmed in the law's transitional provisions. But if you've been building residency and haven't applied yet, the new timeline applies to you. And processing times post-change are unknown because the law just went into effect. The Golden Visa still works for residency. You can still invest in Portugal, get a residence permit, live there. Spain, on the other hand, terminated its real estate Golden Visa entirely. So while Spain is faster for citizenship if you qualify for the exceptions, it's now harder to get residency there in the first place. Portugal's Golden Visa gives you the residency path. The citizenship timeline just got longer, but at least the door is still open. Portugal's advantage was the 5-year path. That's gone. Spain's advantage is the exceptions that get you there faster if you qualify. If you're leaning toward Portugal, I put together the resource guide because it's what I wish I had when I first moved here. It covers banking, navigating healthcare, residency bureaucracy, all the stuff that nobody explains until you're already stuck dealing with it. Links in the description. So here's the direct comparison. General timeline. Portugal is 10 years for most third country nationals, 7 years for EU and Portuguese-speaking countries. Spain is 10 years unless you qualify for the exceptions. If you're married to a Portuguese citizen, still 10 years. If you're married to a Spanish citizen, 1 year. If you were born in Portugal, 10 years. If you were born in Spain, 1 year. If you're from Latin America and you move to Portugal, it's 10 years. Unless you're from Brazil, which drops to 7 years because it's a Portuguese-speaking country. If you're from Latin America and you move to Spain, 2 years. If you're Portuguese and you move to Spain, 2 years. If you're Spanish and you move to Portugal, 7 years. Portugal requires a Portuguese language test at A2 level. Spain requires a Spanish language test, unless you're from a Spanish-speaking country, in which case you're exempt. Spain also requires a cultural test. Portugal doesn't. Cost of living. Portugal is generally cheaper. Lisbon is cheaper than Madrid. Porto is cheaper than Barcelona. But Spain has more city options across different price ranges. Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Seville, Bilbao. You have more geographic flexibility in Spain. Both countries require proof of income for visas, and the amounts are comparable. If your goal is EU citizenship and you don't qualify for Spain's exceptions, the timeline is similar now. But if you do qualify, Spain just became the faster path. So who should choose which country? Choose Spain if you're from Latin America, the Philippines, Andorra, Portugal, or France. You get the 2-year path. Choose Spain if you're married to or planning to marry a Spanish citizen, 1 year. Choose Spain if you were born in Spain or you have parents or grandparents who were originally Spanish, 1 year. Choose Spain if you want more city options and you're willing to pay slightly higher costs in major cities. Choose Portugal if you want the Golden Visa residency path, because Spain terminated theirs. You can still buy property or invest your way into Portuguese residency. Spain closed that door. Choose Portugal if you don't qualify for any of Spain's exceptions and you're from an EU or Portuguese-speaking country, because you get the 7-year path. Choose Portugal if you prioritize lower cost of living and you're fine with fewer city options. Choose Portugal if you prefer smaller, slower-paced cities over major metropolitan areas. Choose Portugal if you're already deep into Portugal's visa process and starting over in Spain doesn't make sense. The honest answer is this. The better choice depends entirely on whether you qualify for Spain's faster paths. If you don't, they're similar now. If you do qualify, Spain gets you EU citizenship in 2 years or 1 year instead of 10 or 7. That's the entire difference. Portugal's competitive advantage was the 5-year citizenship path. That disappeared on May 19th. Spain kept the exceptions that let certain people get there faster. If you're one of those people, Spain is now the clearer path. If you're not, it depends on where you're from and whether you can access Portugal's Golden Visa. If this changes your plan or you need help thinking through your specific situation, find my email in the description and email me. And if you found this video helpful, you should check this one next. Click now, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.